Well, hello and welcome. Draw up a chair, make yourself a drink and just enjoy a little chinwag with me. My name's Penny. I come from the southeast of England. Yes, I do. Well, you see, I'm as much Scottish as I am English. Mind you, that's the northeast of England. So, yeah, I'm living in the southeast of England, but I actually come from, you see, if you follow my DNA right back, and that can get very confusing, as we recognised last week. So hello, my name's Penny. I live in the southeast of England with Peter, my husband, and my 4 chickens. And welcome. He's just testing out the doorbell. I just heard it. So I expect he'll come bounding in a minute to say he's fixed it because it wasn't working properly. So you have to excuse that. It's just how it comes. I haven't got a notebook, anything written down. It's just waffle, really, pure waffle. So where should we start? Well, did you notice last week I put up a little in Auntie Rose's bit, if you followed that bit. I put up a few pictures. I don't know if you realised, but Pete was the little boy in the swimming costume that his mum had knitted for him. I thought that was rather nice, and you could have overlooked that, not knowing that was him. But yeah, we used to wear hand-knitted swimming costumes that, you know, as they got full of water, they'd sort of, oh no. And then we was really excited when nylon came in, and we wore these ruched nylon swimming costumes. I think he still wore woolen trunks. I don't know. I'll have to ask him, but anyway, that's who it is, just this little one. And of course, Pete was the baby of the family, so all the men, they all, you know, they all looked after him, and all his aunties and uncles. It was lovely. So, yeah, just that's what I wanted to say about then. So what am I going to be talking about this week? I've got a little film, and the film is of we went out for lunch on Sunday, which was a real treat. Went with my friend Heather, our friend Heather, who comes to the Isles of Scilly with us. And she says in the little film, oh, this is a walk along. This is a reminiscence, reminds me, because she always used to take photographs of us either walking along, and she was behind us. She's a keen photographer, and she was always behind us taking photographs. So I'll put those up here, the ones she took on the Isles of Scilly. Yeah, so we haven't been for a couple of years because of the situation. And we're hoping to go next year, but we'll see. None of us quite know how things are, do they? Do we? So, yeah, so that's the little film of us just walking around Goodenstone Park and then enjoying a lovely Sunday lunch. I've got a piece with Mum. She tells us about what it was like being newly married where she lived. And yeah, quite different to today. Well, we've got a cat in the garden now. We don't have a cat. Last week was about the cat's whiskers. This week's fascinating fact is about the sea otter, because I can't remember how many hairs per square inch, but it's an amazing number. And of course, they don't have any blubber. But I'll wait and I'll tell you on the fascinating fact. So yeah, and then a little bit of transactional analysis, and we're going to do about strokes this week. So lovely. That's what it consists of. So I'm going to take a slurp of tea and I'll see you in a minute. Right, so shall we start with what I've been making this week? What I've been making is the quilt for Tommy, and I've made a bag for it to go in and for her to carry all her bits around with her. Oh, that cat's pouncing on the birds now. Oh, last week it was a squirrel. This week it's a cat. I'd rather have the squirrel. They're always here, the squirrels. Anyway, let's get on. So the quilt, do you remember I had to do the binding? And so what you do with binding is you cut out, well, first of all, I'll put up some photos here because I took them as I went along. First of all, you cut the edges of the, you know, we had the backing and we had the wadding. So you cut those off and make it all nice and square and neat. And then you cut 2.5 inch strips, that's what I do. And you cut a 2.5 inch strip and then you iron it over and then you sew the raw edges to the raw edges of the quilt. And what are you left with when you turn it over? You're left with a nice neat edge just to hem. And then with the corners, you sew up, put it up north, pull it down south, and go across, and that way you've got a nice mitered corner. But here we go. I'll show you here. You see you've got a nice mitered corner because you took that up and then you pulled it back. You don't have to sew those together. They're already together. You just miter them down like that. See if that one's, yeah. There we are, on the back as well. You get that mitered corner. So that's it finished now. Got the binding on. And I'm really pleased with it. I'll show you. And then the back. Yes, I think you'll like that, don't you? Well, it's more about his mum. But this thing's for him to look at as he gets older. So that's that all bound and finished. Nice neat edge. And then I made a bag for it to go in. So here's the bag. I did that on the bottom, all the different little bits going along. That is the main. And then I've got these for the handles. I've just got to put the handles on this afternoon. I thought the dark would look nice with the handles. But they're going on later when I've done this. And then I had a piece of fabric that I wanted to include, but it just didn't go. It spoilt it, so I didn't use it. But there was just enough for the inside. So that's the inside. Oh, I put a pocket on, yeah. You can see. You can see I've hand quilted. And then you bind it just like I just showed you with the quilt. You bind those edges, As you sew down there, sew that on, which has been folded in half. And then you've got a nice neat edge to hem. That's the neat edge hemmed. So that's the inside. I think it's pretty. So yeah, I put the handles on this afternoon. I think you see, it's lovely. So it squashes up so small. The handles that go over your shoulder. And then the quilt fits in just so beautifully. There it is. I think that's a lovely present. Yeah. So I'll do that tonight and that'll be done. So what I'm going to be doing this week is, I was watching Mousy Makes and she told us about a little bear, and he's so gorgeous I can't resist him. So I'll put the details down below because I can't remember what it is, but I'm going to start that this week. I'm really looking forward to it. I've never been a knitter of toys. Duncan was my first one, you know, my little mouse, and he's my introduction now with his chums, but I can't wait to knit this little bear. And apparently it's all knitted, so you make the face as you go along. There's no seaming. You just knit the whole thing in one. So I'm quite excited about it. And I've got some lovely Garthenor organic wool, just little bits that I sent off for. I think 10 grams, you know. And I've thought, what can I use that for? And of course, it's come into its own now because it'll make lovely bear. So that's what I'm going to be starting this week. Right, so I think should we do the fascinating fact next? And I'll see you after that. Okay. Many aquatic mammals that live in cold waters have a thick layer of blubber under the skin to help them stay warm. The sea otter relies on another insulation method, a thick fur coat. Hunted to the edge of extinction by fur traders in the 18th and 19th centuries, the few remaining sea otters, about 2,000, have marine mammal protection. To find food, sea otters may occasionally dive as deep as 250 feet and will use their sensitive whiskers to locate small prey inside crevices. An otter pup's fur is so dense that it can't dive underwater until it gets its adult fur. This comes in handy when mothers leave their pups safely floating on the water's surface while they forage for food. The otter is one of the few mammals that can use tools, maybe a rock that can be used as a hammer, and they have a loose patch of skin under their armpits to store their food and their rock. The fur of the sea otter is denser than that of any other mammal, with some 1 million hairs per square inch. When the otter swims, its coat traps a layer of air close to its body, acting as an insulator and preventing the cold water from coming into direct contact with its skin. Scientists believe there is a lesson to be learned from the sea otter's fur. They have experimented with a number of artificial fur coats, varying such factors as hair length and hair spacing. The researchers have concluded that the denser and the longer the hairs are, the drier or the more water repellent the hair surface is. Yes, sea otters boast a truly efficient fur coat. Researchers hope that their studies will lead to technological advances in the design and production of water-repellent textiles. Interesting, isn't it? What a beautiful design, of all that. Wouldn't you just love it? If you haven't got blubber, that's exactly what you need. And the fact that the little ones can't, go under because they're just left floating on the surface. And when you saw the picture of all of them, apparently it's a raft of sea otters and they stay together like that for safety. Yeah, so I thought they were lovely photos and very interesting. So they're trying to copy it now. So they do say maybe when we go in the water, with a wetsuit on, maybe it would be better if it was really hairy. Much better to have lots of hairs than just to be smooth. So there we are, our fascinating fact for the week. So what? So shall we go and listen to Mum now? Yeah, we'll listen to Mum, and then when we come back, I've just been round there actually and recorded it. And yeah, she was telling me, what it was like to be a newly married woman of 18 and a half, having lost her mum the year before, and, where she lived. And she was thrilled when I was able to show, how you can get it up on Google, just a photo of the house. And yes, so I hope you enjoy her reminiscing from 1944 through to 1949. Well, just briefly, she touches on me being born, and then she said we lived there until I was 18 months. So what it was like living in two tiny little rooms like that. Anyway, I'll leave her to tell you. So I'll see you after that. Okay, so we're going to have a little chat about well, last time it was about your wedding dress, wasn't it? And about your wedding.
Yes.
And then this time it's about, life after the wedding.
Yes. Well, we were married in the December 1944.
Yeah.
And then 1945, in the September, war ended. So we had 8 months then of a real mix-up because the war was coming to an end, but there was all sorts of awful things happening in those 8 months before the war finally ended.
Well, I know the bomb dropped in Drayton Park, and bombs were dropping all
Yes.
around you, really, Mum.
Yes.
Do you think you block that out, that you don't remember it quite so much, or do you remember all the bombs?
Yes, I do remember,
Yeah.
because so much, they happened so much, that in a way they were a way of life, and you just woke up in the morning and you went to work, and you didn't know what would happen on the way, or what you would see on the way.
Yeah.
And people went to work and there was no work there because their buildings had been bombed.
Yeah.
And all sorts of things would always be going on. Wherever you went, there would be some form of litter, or, you know.
But by this time, you'd sort of got used to it a bit.
Yes.
Not that you ever get used to that, but you'd sort of got accustomed to it.
We'd had 6 years of upset and awful things happening.
Yeah.
So in a way, your life was geared up for all that sort of thing.
And when you think about it, though, here you are, 18 and a half, you just got married.
Yes.
Dad then, well, in the normal run of events, would have been called up, wouldn't he? But he wasn't.
No, he was 18 and he would have been called up because of his age. But he was in what they called a reserved occupation, because he was apprenticed. He was learning sheet metal, and his work was all to do with metal that was producing something which was useful to the war and helpful to other things as well, because they were rebuilding different bits and pieces that had been bombed. And
so he was learning a trade.
Yes.
And I think he felt respected and needed. Yes. It wasn't like, oh no, I haven't been sent, because he was doing a good job and learning.
He wasn't a conscientious objector. He didn't object to going to the war.
Right.
He could have been called up, but he wasn't, because of his job and what he was doing.
Yeah, and his brother was in D-Day, wasn't he?
Yes, his brother was in the Navy.
But you didn't have that worry.
My two brothers were one in the Navy and one in the Army, so... There was...
Yeah, they were all away.
All away,
It must have been nice having Dad at home then.
Oh, yes.
Must have been really nice.
Yes.
So here you are living in Brentwood Road in Drayton Park.
Yes.
And when Mum describes this, well done for living there, Mum.
Yes.
But as you say, it was just the norm. It was it was fine for that time.
Yes.
But also now they sell for $1.5 million. And your rent then, you said, was 15 shillings a week.
75p. 75p.
75p.
In today's money, it was 75p a week.
Yes. But 15 shillings.
Yes.
So was that quite a goodly amount still, though, or was it?
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
It was.
Enough for you?
I earned £2.
Right.
Which was, 15 shillings was nearly £1.
Yes.
And I earned £2, so that was, and Dad earned £3.
Right. So you had £5 coming in, and you spent 75 pence on rent.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. Yeah. So it was a reasonable.
Yes, it
not
was.
Not like now where they're exorbitant.
No,
the rents are just too silly, aren't they?
No, you could afford. We could afford it. Yes.
You could afford it. So you lived in Brentwood Road, and the houses are rather nice. They're 3 stories.
Yes.
Small.
Yes.
But 3 stories high, and you said you had a room that took up. You were on the top floor, and you had a room that took up 2 of the windows, because there's 2 windows in the front, and this particular window there was over the hallway, so you had the front door and a window up there.
Yes.
And what did you have in that little bit there? That
in our front room.
That was your front room with the 2 windows.
We only had a 3'6" bed. We only had a single bed because furniture was rationed.
Okay.
And you couldn't get. And we had an armchair and a couple of chairs in the front room, and a small wardrobe. All the furniture that we had been given to us because furniture was rationed, and also what furniture you could get was very expensive.
Yeah.
quite expensive.
No telly, Mum?
No television.
Radio?
No. Yes, we had a radio.
wireless?
Yes, we had a radio.
Yeah. So you listened to the radio, did you?
Yes, we listened mostly really news and music, because there was lots of film music.
Yeah.
Dad
loved his music.
Yes, he loved his music.
So there you are in that room with a single bed and a chair and a single wardrobe. And then you had another room, though, Mum?
Yes.
2 rooms.
We had a very small, half the size of that front room, in the back. And that had a gas stove and no other equipment there, just a gas stove. We had no washing facilities in that room because the sink the small sink that we had, the only water we had was on the landing down one flight of steps.
Right.
And a very small sink, which was just big enough to put a jug in.
Right.
And a tiny bowl. So I used to have to fill up the jug and then bring it up this flight of stairs to fill up a bowl that Dad had bought, a second-hand little,
vanity
what they called a washstand.
What washstand?
Yes.
Victorian washstand.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which had a hole in the middle for a bowl.
Yeah.
And used to have to bring the water up, heat it in the kitchen on the gas stove in a big pot or pan or whatever, and then take that out to the on the landing with this bowl. And Dad, because he was in sheet metal, Dad was able to make me a new top to that of sheet metal, which I was able to put things then on the side.
Oh, right.
And I had a bucket underneath to catch the water when we'd finished. Yes. Yeah. But then that had to be taken down 2 flights of stairs to the toilet, which was on the next floor.
Right.
To be.
So if you wanted to go to the loo, down 2 flights of stairs, Mum.
Yes, and we shared the loo with the other couple.
Yeah.
In the middle flat.
And I think you said you had a small kitchen table next to the stove, and Dad put you up some shelves.
Yes, Dad put up shelves to take what crockery and bits and pieces we had.
So you were there from 1944 to 1950.
Yes.
So what happened in the meantime was I came along in 1949. So you were there on your own for quite a bit. Yes. And I know that after the war, Dad was called up.
Yes.
Because then the men came back from the war and he wasn't needed. And so he was then in the RAF for 2 years.
Yes, he was called up in 1946.
Right.
And he did 2 years in the Air Force.
So you were on your own in that place then, apart from him coming back home on leave. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And then, of course, I came along and you had to squish me into there.
Yes, we were able then to buy. They had prams then where you could take the middle of the pram out. We used to take you right up the stairs, the 4 flights of stairs.
Right.
And until you were old enough to sit up.
Yeah.
That was your cot then.
Right.
The middle of your pram.
My pram was my cot.
Because the pram then was folded up.
Right.
And we were allowed then to just use the base of the pram, leave that in the hall.
Okay. And then you bought me a small, it wasn't a big cot. No, it was just a small collapsible cot, you said, just to keep me safe.
Yes, that's right, yes.
So how did you do your washing, Mum?
Well, our big washing, we took to the shop where I was registered because food was rationed.
Right.
And we had to register to a butcher's and a grocer's. You had to register your book, so you could only go to those shops to buy those certain goods.
Right.
And the shop where I was registered for groceries used to take in what they called bag wash.
Bag wash.
And all sheets and big washing.
And Dad would take that for you, would he? You didn't carry that there, did you?
Well, I did when he was in the Air Force. I used to then do it. But then I was fortunate because we had this little group of shops at the top of Drayton Park.
Right.
And so it wasn't very far, no, to take it.
And did it come back dry?
No, it came back what they called semi-dry.
Okay.
Which was damp, but only damp.
So you could iron it and put it on an airer.
Well, you could.
Yeah.
But if I wasn't very happy, then I would hang it out on the line, and our line then was a line between. I used to have to open the window.
Right.
And Dad had fixed me up a line between two chimney pots, and I just used to wind it all in.
Right.
And then hang it out. And the same with you, with your nappies and everything.
Yeah. Out there between the chimney pots.
Yes.
Giddy, aren't I? Feel like Dick Van Dyke should come and do a dance for us, Mum. Oh, dear. Yes. Yeah. So what was it like then, cooking, newly married? There you are cooking. I mean, could you get enough food for Dad to eat and, you know?
Yes, we managed.
You managed.
Yes, everybody really managed doing what
you weren't eating what you ate now, were
you? No. But my cooking wasn't brilliant because my mother didn't, although she taught me lots of cooking, cakes and things like that, there was things that I used to cook for Dad, and he would say he loved dumplings because you could make a lot of a piece of meat, mince it up, and but he loved dumplings, and of course my mother's dumplings and his mother's dumplings were gorgeous because they were made with suet, which softened into the flour and the juice and the gravy of the meat. But my dumplings, he said, were, if you put them in the sea, they would sink.
Oh, well, you have to practice, Mum.
So yes,
married at 18 in the war.
I did have to practice.
Yeah, because your dumplings are lovely now, so you got there in the end. Yeah.
Yes.
And how did you heat the place, Mum?
Well, we had an electric fire, which we used to just transfer from one room to the other, you know. We tried to use one room at a time and only the bedroom just in the evening.
Yeah. So you're stuck in that little kitchen then if you weren't in the bedroom.
Yes.
I mean, not a lot of room for me to run around,
and of course,
there?
I didn't have a sink in the kitchen until you were born, because then in 1948 the NHS came.
Yeah.
And then government had to change lots of rules and give people who'd had children the facilities to bring those children up. And so they did put us a nice big butler sink in the kitchen.
That must have been wonderful.
Just before you were born. And that was a dream, because we then could get rid of our little washstand on the landing, which could be quite dangerous to work around, and with the stairs as well, and coming up and down to fill it up with hot water and things.
Yes, so they put all that in.
So they put that in, which was absolutely smashing.
Yeah.
And then able to manage to wash different things, and I had a big pot that I used to put on the stove for different things, boil up different things, which was lovely.
Yeah. Righty-ho then. So next time I think then it'll be the move to Dagenham Road, and then you moved on to Harlow. So that's where we said we were going to start this week, but I thought it would be good to just go over this and what it was like being newly married in these situations.
And we looked at it was lovely that you were able to get the photograph up of the house.
Of Brantwood Road, yes. I'll put it up here so people can see what it was like. Yeah, 1.5 million now, so a little bit different to then. Yeah.
Yes.
So, okay, then we'll see you next time.
Yes, that's lovely.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye. Oh, thanks, Mum. It was just a joy to listen to her reminiscing sitting amongst all her cupboards because she's got 1 or 2 cupboards in her kitchen. And yeah, all she had was a couple of shelves. Can you imagine? And leaning out of the window, putting the nappies out and all the washing out, and being rationed. So only being able to shop in limited shops where your ration books were. So different, isn't it? So different. But as she said, you got used to the bombs, and yeah, there was some big bombs went off round her. They really did. I think in 1945 in March, I think, you know, there was a couple of hundred killed, and it, you know, it was London, wasn't it? And bombs were going off all over the place. As she said, she never knew if when she got home the house would still be there, or where she worked would still be there. So yeah, so appreciate her doing this. So shall we do some transactional analysis? Okay, I hope you understood what's gone on so far. I think next week I will recap, and that's what I will keep doing, recapping. But for this week, I want to go on and talk about strokes. So what are strokes? Well, if we're walking down the road and I see you, or if I'm walking down the road and I see you, and I say, oh, hi, and you say hi back, we've recognised that we're existing, that we're there. We might have just waved, we might not have talked, but the fact that we've acknowledged each other is we might have just smiled. It's a bit difficult now with masks. We're missing that, aren't we? What is that person doing? But yeah, that's a unit of recognition, and we all need that. We all need it to function. Without it, we really go downhill. We really do. There's been studies that have proved it. And if I said hello to you and you walked straight past me without smiling or saying hello back, I'd think, oh, what's going on here? Something's going on. It wouldn't be normal. It wouldn't be right, would it? We feel deprived if we don't get strokes. We need them. We absolutely need them. So researchers, interestingly, they've observed babies. It was in the 1940s they did it, reared in a children's home. They were well fed, they were well kept, but they were emotionally deprived because people thought, right, so long as they're well fed, well cared for, that's all they need. But of course, they've come to realize that what they need is stimulus. You know, look at babies now. I mean, giddy aunt, what they do now. And those babies in that home, they had little to do except look at the white walls, and yeah, maybe people would come in and check they're all right, but they didn't interact with them as we do now with children. They didn't touch them, they didn't cuddle them, and they didn't stroke them. So without those strokes, they were emotionally deprived. And so we need that. We need those strokes. Of course, we've missed those strokes in lockdown and all of this, haven't we? Because, you know, we've had to socially distance, and how strange it feels because we need it. We know we need it. So just a hello or a smile, it does us good, doesn't it? Even if it's a frown or somebody's not happy with us, we prefer that to a blank face, because that person is showing that we exist. So that's how our need for strokes is. We really do need them. Okay, so there's verbal and non-verbal. Let's think about that. A verbal, hi. A non-verbal, smile or a frown. Verbal and non-verbal. They're quite easy to remember, aren't they? Then we've got positive and negative. Well, the positive might be the smile. Hello. Oh, didn't expect to see you here. And a frown. That's a negative, isn't it? Against a positive. Oh, we've got conditional and unconditional. What might that be? Conditional and unconditional. Well, I'll tell you in a minute. Let's talk about the verbal and the non-verbal. Hello, through to a full range conversation. Or non-verbal, nod, shake of the head, a wave. Any transaction is an exchange of strokes. Verbal or non-verbal. Positive or negative. Okay, so as I said, we met that neighbour walking down the road. A positive would be a big smile. Non-verbal. But it would be positive if it was, But a negative would be a frown. Ooh, didn't expect to see you this morning. Yeah, nice day, I say. Well, it was till I saw you. So you might imagine that people would always seek out positive strokes. But no, we seek out any kind of stroke. Why? Because it tells us we're alive. There were some gruesome studies with the rats. One group, they were kept in identical featureless boxes. One group of rats was given electric shocks. Another group of rats weren't. And the group of rats who did better were the group of rats who got the shocks, because it was better than being left completely isolated. Well, isolation is a terrible form of punishment, isn't it? Now, when we're infants, that's how we feel, like those rats. We'd rather get a telling off than absolute blank. We'd rather get a telling off than somebody not recognising that we're there. And sometimes as grown-ups, we remember that time and we go back to that time. And that's what we can change while we're learning TA. Now let's go on to the conditional and the unconditional. Okay, let's think about a positive conditional. I might pick the little one up from school and he's done some painting. And I say, what a fantastic painting. Well done. Well, that's positive, but it's conditional on him doing painting. He might not have had that lesson that day, and so I wouldn't be able to talk about the painting. Unconditional, I don't like your socks. Yeah, that's conditional because they might not have worn those socks that day, but it's a negative because I don't like your socks. So think about the unconditional. I love you. Don't have to do or say anything. You're being told, I love you. Unconditional positive. I hate you. Unconditional negative. So we'll leave it there. I hope you understood that, but I'll go over all of that next week because we'll carry it a lot further. It's quite interesting, actually. And notice what you say. Do you often give out positive, unconditional strokes? We might feel it's risky. There's too much to say, I won't go on. But just notice what kind of strokes there are around you. So it's time for the little film now. So I hope you enjoy that. It's just a little one walking around Goodenstone Park with Heather. Not Heather who does the poems and who's Scottish Heather. She comes from, literally, she's lived in Margate all her life. So yeah, she's a local girl. And when I moved here, I found Heather and we've been good friends ever since. So I'll see you next week and have a good week and take care of yourselves. Bye.
there's a picture I know and love. The backside of Pete and Pen. That's what I love. I am. I'm feeling all nostalgic now.
Jane Austen, perhaps.
Couple of 100 years.
Gorgeous, isn't it?
Yeah.
And is that an Acer tree in the back there? It looks like it, does it?
Beautiful colour. Yeah.
I'm guessing.